Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called In What Way Is He a Healer?, written by Redundantfridge. Just a quick note that I stream every day at 9 a.m. GMT+1 on both Twitch and on YouTube, and I'd be honored if you popped past and said hello. Anyways, on to the story. We returned back to camp with half the men the raid started with. The other half were barely hanging on by a thread. All the support and auxiliary rushed to the aid of our comrades. The once quiet forward operating base was now ablaze with anxiety and fervor. I stood there in shock, seeing the broken bodies and minds of all the adventurers who joined on the expedition. I could hardly think. Snap, snap. Who the hell was left? Could anyone even slow the ancient dragon down? Barca, Letta? No. Not even they could have done it. We have to abandon the mission. This land, we'll lose this land to gain a few more days. We have to. It's a state of emergency. Even the Emperor has to acknowledge that fact. Snap, snap. Feck me. The Lord should have sent their armies for this. Those selfish bastards, because of them, everyone... Snap, 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 snap. I finally acknowledged the sound of someone snapping their fingers in my face. Hey, leader, you good? When I came out of my stupor of thought, I saw a human standing right in front of me. I don't recognize him at all, especially when he was wearing some unusual orange gear. Even more ridiculous is the fact that he was wearing such a thick gear in this heat. In spite of that, he wasn't sweating a droplet. Who are you? I eyed him up and down. No obvious adventuring tags, no demarcation of guild or league. Wait, where the hell was his weapon? Is it the strange object wrapped in unusual cloth that's on his back? It is secured tightly to him like a cloak. I am Franz Helliver, he patted himself on the chest, here to inform you that Human King Alexander has sent the 2nd Peacekeeping Rapid Response Unit to provide aid. I grasped his shoulders. It felt like grabbing the side of a mountain. Aid? Just aid? My breathing got heavier. The human continued staring at me. My friend, we're going to need a lot more than just aid. There is an ancient dragon rampaging, and all we get is... Tisk. You didn't let me finish. The 2nd unit is here for aid. Actually, annihilating the dragon is my job. Anyone who was eavesdropping completely stopped what they were doing and looked on in pure astonishment. For myself, such a thing was incomprehensible. 200 adventurers couldn't beat the damn thing. 100 are left alive. Now you're telling me one man is going to kill the dragon. This man. One man. I wanted to berate him, completely shut him down from even attempting, ultimately prevent him from throwing away his own life in vain. Yet I didn't. My mouth was open, but I couldn't scream. Why? This man, with no weapons in sight, his demeanor was not of a foolish, arrogant man. The air around him was otherworldly. The authority, he was absolute. In spite of his hopeful eyes, something more lived behind the veil. Franz, I never heard your name before. Are you someone I'm supposed to know? Also, what class are you anyway? The human pinched his chin and thought about it. That is a loaded question. Personally, I am not a fan of other people actually knowing me. It is unnecessary. And I don't even know how many people actually recognize me if I bothered to check. However, the king himself was desperate, so I answered. And here I am. This man said that so casually, like he was going on a stroll through a picturesque garden, not a dragon hunt. And your class? The human thought about it again, then shook his head. That one is complicated, arguably. I am a healer of sorts. Other people have said that I am a healer. For me, I'm just a Franz. Nothing more, nothing less. In what plane of existence is that a proper answer? Whether or not someone heals should not be up for interpretation. Wait. The human king sent a healer to slay a dragon? He nodded his head. Yep. I internally screamed. Okay. I slowly calmed down, breathed, then continued. All right, Franz. I'm going to personally follow you and provide as much support as I can offer. If I see you getting overwhelmed, I'll try my hardest to save you. The human grinned at me. I appreciate your generous offer, but have faith in me. However, if you insist, I will not stop you. After my encounter with Franz, I commanded everyone to pull back from the mission. Only Franz and I will march forward towards the dragon. We only departed once everyone packed up and left to meet the human army. On our short journey to the center of the Hell Incarnate, I noticed something particularly off about the human. His presence just didn't exist. I knew he was walking with me. I fully acknowledged that he was flesh and blood, but I felt nothing. A complete absence of magic, life force, absolutely anything that even a walking corpse would have. If anything, whatever the hell he carried on his back was a bigger presence than he did. Yet I didn't question it out loud. If the human king himself sent him, then maybe he had a trick up his sleeve. The closer we approached the epicenter of destruction, the more the weather became distorted. Ashes rained down, black clouds funneled in. It seemed as though the end of times had arrived. Through the dying lands, the corpses of civilians and adventurers became indistinguishable from the scorched earth. Where we could see the distance, entire villages and even a city had been reduced to a mere shallow remains akin to lost civilizations. Upon the desecrated world, there laid an ancient dragon. Nothing alive or dead remained in its path, only absolute destruction. Everything, from the finest siege engines to the most veteran of warriors, were dealt the same fate. The bleak luster of its black and grey scales became the backdrop for damnation. My heart pounded, sweat accumulating, my legs quivered, memories of my fallen men flashed through my head. I took a gander at Franz. His expression had hardened. Instead of the goofy grin and embracing bright eyes, the man embodied the will to fell a dragon. Only at that moment I noticed the beast stirring. He began moving. His head pointed towards us. His eyes gleamed with pure hate. When I saw Franz open his mouth, I heard an unusual buzzing sound. The words that came out of his mouth, I didn't recognize anything. My vision began to warp. Head spun around. Something whispered to me. He removed the covering of his unknown object. Suddenly, it felt like all the knowledge of the universe washed over me. Everlasting peace, existential dread, unbridled sorrow, and abject obedience. 4 clashing emotions nearly destroyed me at the core of my being. I dropped to my knees, and I started praying. I didn't recognize the words I uttered. What verse am I speaking in? I will pray. I only knew. I had a primal inclination to do what my mortal being could commit, will do, or die in defiance. There was no choice. At the same time, the dragon gave a roar of pure bestial abandonment. It bellowed a breath of fiery madness straight into the heavens above. His eyes widened even as it feared what he had just revealed. With a single flap of its wings, it took flight, and the sudden wind pressure blasted away the tsunami of dust and ash in all directions. It began to go the other direction. Within my own realm of suffering and bliss, in a moment of mortal recollection, my eyes acknowledged its surroundings. I attempted to comprehend what the human just revealed. In his hands was an abhorrent tool that should not exist, yet I inherently knew what it was. A primordial fragment given form in pulsating, breathing flesh and chattering bone. By its mere presence, I felt all the energy drained from the space around it. Within the span of a few seconds, I went from feeling agonizing heat to a hellish cold. Only by a flutter of the human's cloak did my clouded mind move away from the cursed weapon. Only by witnessing the inscriptions on both cloth was I allowed the authority to think. Only then did I stop praying. He held the weapon in an overhand position. Franz began to swiftly pursue the dragon, the speed of which was otherworldly. The storms of dirt and ash he kicked up matched the power of the thunderous wings of the dragon. I watched in amazement as I witnessed the human's hunt. As he ran, right before he ended up below where the dragon should be, his entire body twisted. All of his muscles and bones were rotated unnaturally past what a human could do before he launched the weapon perfectly skyward. A sonic boom was committed point blank on top of Franz, and a tidal wave of debris spread away from him. I heard the ancient dragon unleash a blood-curdling roar as it began falling down towards the earth below. The dragon kept blowing out wave upon wave of fire. Where he got pierced, the forsaken weapon had crystallized the blood, and its flesh began to melt with the beast. No, it was devouring him. Only then did I notice that the dragon's fall began to slow down. Only because of the ashen air did I realize what was happening. I could visibly see the air refuse to move and freeze where the two were slowly descending, until all movement ceased. Any ash that got blown into the general area stopped moving entirely. This thing's mere presence began to turn the weather of the land into its own territory. Everything began to freeze. The grounds began to develop frost. The clouds that signified the end became even more apparent. I took one glance at Franz. The human stared up at his tool, consuming the dragon. He demonstrated a truly neutral expression. No fear, no victory. I saw a truly empty vessel of a living being. My legs failed to move. My body refused to take action. All I could do was become an observer as I witnessed the maliciously slow destruction of an ancient dragon be methodically eaten by a fragment of a being that existed before the first thread of our own concept of eternity. When I glanced over at Franz and his cloth, I immediately accepted what it was. I should have been conscious of what it was. It was the only thing my mind could conceive. Its coloration, the fabric, a material that originally existed only in fairy tales and myth, a color only seen in dreams, a threading born in the deepest sleep and forsaken memories, the cloth that only exists now because people believed it was real. The words, the enchantment placed upon the cloth, written in a scripture that continuously changed and morphed. The lettering itself bled from the fabric and lingered in the air. When Franz shook the cloth, my attention broke away. I had control over my own thoughts now. To preserve myself, I looked to the ground. I had to look at the broken earth, or else I'd become lost. The strange buzzing, a nauseous vibration. Franz was speaking in a tongue I had no right to meet with my ears. Slowly, a droning sound reverberated even the scorched earth I stood on. Vision blurred. My bones felt like they were decaying. I slowly drifted to my knees. Then my hands. Then my muscles stopped functioning, and I fully embraced the ashen dirt. There I lay, fully accepting the end, until the purest form of silence reached me. Light had shone upon me. Warmth returned to the land. All the nerves of my body had returned to normal. I began lifting myself off the ground when I heard a recognizable sound for once. Snap, snap. Hey, leader, you good? I stared up at the human, who grinned at me like what just happened didn't occur. His accursed tool was wrapped around in an impossible fabric on his back. I should be afraid, or maybe confused. My mind should be in shambles, yet it wasn't. He presented a hand to me, and I accepted. Once I was on my own 2 feet, the sky was fully opened to me. Clear skies, no sign of dragon, even among the hellish landscape that spreads as far as the horizon. I felt like the land made peace with itself, marveling at the calm damnation around me. I faced my back to Franz and took a few steps in the opposite direction. Franz, I have a personal question for you. Yeah, sure, okay, what? Who are you? Franz Hellwolder. I lowered my head down and snickered. I understand, Franz. As a representative of the Adventurers Guild, I would like to thank you for saving us, all of us. No amount of reward or appreciation would ever match your contributions to this raid. No problem. You take care of yourself, leader. I began to turn around. My name's not... Gone. Franz had disappeared from sight, like reality itself made him vanish. Where he stood, it was obvious a being had been standing there. The prints were quickly washed away by the wind and ash. When I returned to my camp, I gave news of the dragon's defeat. The human army and the adventurers all cheered as one. When I told the commanding officer that Franz had killed the dragon, he looked at me with bewilderment. He didn't know who Franz was. The longer my memory of this day existed, the more it faded. Even when I attempted to record what had happened, the ink would rise from the paper and end up on the desk. Or maybe the verse I wrote got transformed into an incomprehensible scripture. Once, I had sworn that it was illegible writing, and when someone else read it, the parchment was blank. With the days that go by, I eventually made an audience with the human king Alexander. For accomplishments and my duties in my line of work, he was personally offering the awards. My first question to him was, My liege, Do you know of a man named Franz Heliva? The old man looked at me funny before giving a cheerful laughter. Oh, yes, of course I do. Got interested in human fairy tales, I see. I almost broke my composure, but remained in place. A fairy tale? The king nodded. Yes. Franz Heliva, the Life Mender, popular amongst the kids, and even some literature circles here and there. Been a classic for centuries, if you can read. My apologies, sire, but do you know any man actually named Franz Heliva? The king rubbed his magnificent beard. Maybe, I'm uncertain. Heliva is a rare last name, and chances are those people might name their child after the classical character. Would certainly not be the first time I have seen someone with a name based off of those circumstances. I see. Thank you. After I received my awards, I went on my own path. I visited the nearest bookstore, purchased a copy of the fairy tale Franz was apparently a part of, then headed to the nearest inn. I intended to rent a room for privacy. That was my intention. Snap. What the fuck? Hey, leader. Long time no see. End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters. Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Drexzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.